Thank you all for coming. I'm going to stay down here and walk around a little today. So we're going to be talking about the second part of my presentation. Yesterday, I had a presentation, and I'm going to refer back to that, but I put in enough slides here so that if you weren't here yesterday, you're going to be able to understand what I'm talking about. So included in this talk, I'm going to talk mainly about creating a context and the infrastructure for success. And what I'm concerned about with small nonprofits is not that you don't know how to do an e-solicit or put on an event. You can Google that. It's pretty much common sense. You can find out how to do that pretty easily if you just spend a little time on the internet. But what you're not often taught in when you're starting out or in the initial stages of growth is how to make yourself successful by creating the foundation for success. And so that's what I address in these two talks. I'm also going to talk about understanding what the essence of fundraising is. We'll get to that. I really think that I've often been asked to talk about grants because they're my specialty, but I've decided not to talk about them today because I'm trying to push people away from depending too much on thinking that grants are going to come in and save them. What you always really need to do is work really, really hard on developing your donor base, your huge base of individual supporters. And so I'm going to work a little bit on that today. And then now I'm going to also urge you and show you how to start building some muscle into your strategy. A lot of you here today are still at those initial stages where you're just rushing to fill your coffers every month. But if you aren't thinking to the next stage, you're going to come to a stopping point. You're not going to be able to grow. And so I'm going to show you a few steps that are fairly easy and that you can start doing now if you just pay attention and start adding a few steps to what you're already doing. So creating a context and an infrastructure for development success. These are the topics we'll be covering in this little section. Stake your presence as a good nonprofit. There's a lot of trust involved in working with your donors, and if you don't reach out and kind of respect their need to know that you're a trustworthy organization, they're a lot less likely to give to you. And a lot of people will walk away from your organization without ever donating because you didn't take any steps to try to reassure them before you really knew them that you were a good organization. I'm going to urge you again, as I did last time I spoke, to get started on figuring out your financial data as soon as you possibly can. Even if you have to come to a point where you're making a decision, am I going to hire an adoption counselor or a bookkeeper? I'm here to tell you, you need to hire the bookkeeper. You're going to stop your growth and you're not going to be able to hire anybody eventually unless you get this started as soon as you possibly can. I want you to understand relationship building. That is the heart and soul of fundraising. And then I'm going to touch a little bit on donor management. So one of the really easy things you can do is to get out there and get yourself known out in the world. And this is a very simple thing that you can do. You can go to GuideStar.org, and you'll see here what GuideStar is if you don't already know. It's a big database of all the nonprofits in the country. And one thing you should know is that if you are a registered nonprofit, you are on GuideStar, but your profile, like Texas Pets Alive, is not filled out because it's your responsibility to fill out the profile here. And when you do, when you get yourself represented on GuideStar, you're gonna be able to reach a lot more donors. A lot of donors, especially larger donors, go here and research nonprofits routinely before they ever consider donating to you. So you go in, you fill out your profile. It takes a few hours, maybe. You can do it in stages. If you come to a question in the profile that you can't answer, you can just save your work, go out, figure out the question when you have time, come back in, enter it. Nothing is going to show up on your profile until you hit the publish button. So this is a really low stress, low intensity thing that you can do to increase your trustworthiness to donors. And then if you answer the questions right, if you're doing all the right things, and you can tell if you're doing the right things in nonprofit management, because the questions are pointing you to the things that people who rate nonprofits want to see you doing. So read between the lines. If you don't know what good nonprofit management is, you don't need to. You just need to go and read their questions and they'll tell you what it is. If you answer enough of those questions correctly, you will get a badge. So this is not APA's badge here. And we're at the highest level, we're platinum. We practice the very best practices of good nonprofit management. They've now introduced this so that you have to do it year to year. So this is our 2018 badge because I haven't gone in and done our 2019 profile yet. But if you get that, you put it everywhere. It's in the footer of our website. It's on every e-solicit we send out. When we have a newsletter going out to our large donors, we put it on there. They see it. They don't even need to go read our profile. That is a stamp of approval. So if you haven't done this, go and do this. I say this every year, and I just went and looked up Pets Alive on GuideStar, and I noticed that most of the Pets Alive organizations now have theirs filled out, or about half of them do. So I think this is having an effect, and that's a really good thing. A really great thing about this is any donor can go into GuideStar and say they're at the end of the year and they want to give to animal welfare, but they don't know who to give to because they don't know what the good organizations are. They can go in there and search animal welfare, and if your name pops up and you've got a seal of approval in there, they are more likely to pick you out and donate to you. And that's a donor you never even heard of. Another good way to do this is to pay close attention to what donors want. And what a lot of donors want is to not get on a million mailing lists. So a really easy thing to do is to put a donor privacy policy on your website. This is one is, ours is in the footer of our email. You can go into our website, click on that donor link, look at our profile, our donor policy, and just put your name in it. Copy it and paste it yourself and just use it. That would be a really easy way for you to acquire a donor policy. You're welcome to do that. You've got full permission, but you do have to follow that policy. Our policy is the very strictest policy of privacy there is, because I always advocate for that, and because it's what donors want. So that's a really easy step. You can take those 2 steps, and you are now seen as a trustworthy organization. You do have to live up to it, but those are some really easy things that you can do right now. So as I said yesterday, one of the most important things you need to start doing earlier than later is to get your financial data in order. And the easiest way to do this is to get a bookkeeper. You can get a volunteer to do this, but this is someone who is there day to day doing your entry of expenses and income, writing your checks, doing deposits, just the day-to-day management of financial data. If you do that, you're going to earlier than later start building up your data and understanding where your income comes from and where your expenses are. And you'll see a little later how that pans out. Until you have a budget of about $2 million, you don't need like a finance director. You don't need a really advanced person to take care of your finances. But if nobody in your leadership has financial know-how, you need somebody to come in about once a month and close your books and do your 990 form every year and create very simple budgets. But that's a person who pops in for a few hours every month. It could be a board member. That's a good way to acquire the financial know-how you need. It could be a volunteer. It could be someone you just pay for a few hours every month to come and do that. But this will change your world if you start doing that. APA didn't do it at the beginning. So when I came in and was volunteering as a grant writer, I was eager, I was ready, I was writing grant proposals, and I couldn't submit any for 6 months because nobody had written an operating budget. So if you want to start moving up the chain in development, you need to start doing these things sooner than later. So these are the basic financial documents. Is everybody aware of these? Is this strange to anybody? Do I need to dwell on this? Okay. I'm kind of underestimating where you are in your budget. So if anybody wants me to move along faster through the basics, we can do that. And we could just have some discussion about problems.
Yeah, I have one question though. We don't have, I mean, the P&R first, just, we don't have no recap.
Right, so the question is, we're not paying an auditor, we can't afford it. That is the perennial problem of nonprofits as they're growing. So you don't need an audit. If you're getting federal grants, you need one if you've got a budget of $500,000 or more. You don't really need an audit until you're up in the millions. But at some point, you need to just buckle down and spend the money. It costs thousands of dollars to get an audit, but you cannot get a lot of grants that are available out there, the bigger grants, unless you have one. A lot of corporate sponsors will not sponsor you if you don't have an audit, and a lot of major donors look for the audit. So at some point, that is a hard line that you cannot cross in your growth unless you've got one. But there are ways to, there are interim ways to get an audit. There are things you can do to get you towards an audit. For instance, you could have just a program audited, the expenses around a program. So if you're applying for a grant or wanting a corporate sponsor to support a program, you can get just the program audited, and then they're assured that that program is being run well. So there's lots of little interim steps you can take. So here's an operating budget in case people haven't seen them. It seems like this crowd is a little more sophisticated, maybe you have. And this is our actual 2015 operating budget. This is as simple as it needs to be, but you need that person who's coming in once a month to put this together. The real beauty of this is that somebody is there figuring out what your expenses are going to be, because you write your operating budget for the year in January. You're projecting forward and looking forward to seeing how much you are going to need to spend to do your mission, and that becomes your fundraising goal. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. This lineup, these line items are not necessarily exactly what you need to have in your operating budget. Your operating budget should reflect what kind of organization you are, where you spend money as opposed to where someone else may spend money, where you get your income as opposed to where someone else might get their income. It gives people a nice snapshot view of the business end of your organization. So one of the things that I really have started urging people to do more and more is to very fast, as soon as you can, if you're like at the $250,000 mark in your budget, if you have several hundred donors, is to sooner than later get a donor management system in place. So we have here today out in the vendor hall Little Green Light. Little Green Light is what we use, and the reason why they come here is because I love Little Green Light and I tell everybody how great it is. And so they're interested in coming here to represent us. So if you want to hear more about what a donor management system can do for you, go out and talk to Timmy. She's really experienced. She knows it really well. I'll touch on it a little bit. Who here does not have a donor management system? So a lot of you. What are your budgets? Shout it out. 150,000. So you may not be quite ready for one, but think ahead, because there are amazing things that a donor management system can do. When we got a really good one when we adopted Little Green Light, I, in essence, gained a staff member, because the person who used to sit there and just do data entry is now out stewarding donors and bringing in gifts, just because I got the right technology. So the really important thing is how you choose what you're going to get. And one key fact that a lot of people forget is that the real cost of a donor management system is not the technology, it's the person that you need to run it. You've got to have somebody who's really good at donor data, at any kind of database. And if you get a really good, simple, intuitive system like Little Green Light, you don't need anybody who necessarily knows donor data. You need someone who just understands good database practice. So that opens the field for you. There was someone here yesterday in my talk who came up after me and told me he's a volunteer and he implemented Little Green Light for the organization that he works for. So, and he had never done anything with donor databases, he'd just done stuff with databases. So there's a lot of resources out there for you to get started on this. As long as you can get one person to agree to be the administrator, that's basically all you need to set up a really simple system. So you assign a good administrator. You remember that no matter how good the technology is, your data has to be good going into it or it won't work. And then the things that you do to choose a system over here is you look at cost. Little Green Light is, I think, one of the most powerful systems out there, aside from the really, really advanced ones where you have to hire an expert to run it, which is extremely expensive. But it costs, at the very basic level, if you have no more than about 2,500 donors in it, is less than $500 a year. And there is a grant at TechSoup.org. Does everyone know TechSoup? Really cheap software prices for nonprofits there. They have a grant that if you are at a budget of, I think, less than $100,000, they will pay for your first year of Little Green Light. And once you've been in Little Green Light for a year, it will pay for itself over and over again. There's also a grant there for $125 to help you cover the cost of the system if you're over $100,000. So there's a lot of these resources that you can put together to get yourself started on donor management. So you look at cost, you look at capacity. How many constituents can go into the system? Seats, how many staff can use it? I chose Little Green Light because I like everybody on my staff of 6 to be able to use it. A lot of systems, you get 1 seat and only 1 person controls the database, and if they go on vacation, where are you? Right. So another really important thing is that it has to be able to import, and you have to be able to import gifts. You don't want to be sitting there entering every gift hand by hand. You want something that will just take a spreadsheet from your online giving platform or PayPal or whatever payment system you're using and just feed it into your system. You want it to be really intuitive and easy. Little Green Light, I'll tell you the story. We were using an older system before that was just a nightmare, and during Hurricane Harvey, you all know that we had a huge response, APA mounted a huge response to Hurricane Harvey. We were able to do that because we got into the media and the donations started to roll in. So our response to Harvey was totally driven by the money that was coming in. We didn't plan on doing that big response. We just got the opportunity to do that big response. And so we were getting thousands of donations per hour coming in. And on the day that that started happening, our old system broke down. So we had already planned to move to Little Green Light, but we had already mapped the data from the old system to the new system, but we had not changed yet. We changed that day, the busiest fundraising day in our history, and it was seamless. I was using it without any training the hour that we started using it. That is an incredibly intuitive, easy system to use. They don't pay me to say this. I'm just so enthusiastic. It's been such a godsend to me that I just advocate it for all the time. So it's really intuitive and easy. It's really flexible. You can profile your donors however you want in it by coding, how you do the coding. It's got great support. It does not have phone support, but their email and knowledge-based support is so good that it doesn't matter. It integrates with other software, so we use MailChimp in marketing, and our MailChimp is integrated into Little Green Light, so we know everybody who subscribes to our newsletter. We know if a donor has gotten our newsletter. We know if they've opened their newsletter. So we're aware, a lot more aware of who our donors are and what they're doing. And last, security. Everybody has good security now, but it used to be an issue. So these are the factors that you consider if you're choosing a donor database. And this is what you get once you get in. This is a screenshot from early this morning of our donor database. I see instantly, every morning I get up, I open Little Green Light, my dashboard. I can see how much money we have raised this year. I can see how much we've raised in February. It's only the second. It was only the second when I did this, so we haven't gotten very far. These are snippets from pieces of my dashboard because I couldn't fit them all on the slide. I can compare year to year to year, and this is instantaneous. I push this button, it's like that. I can see what I did in 2017 this month. I can see what I did in 2018. I can see what I did in 2019. I am so awash in data that I can make really strategic decisions in an instant with this system. And this is true across all donor management systems. Some of them are more intuitive than others. Some of them have better dashboards than others. But all of these systems can do this for you. So I can see which funds are filling up fast. So in 2018, our biggest fund was American Pets Alive. And that was actually money for the conference. And then I can see if our cat programs are doing well, or our dog programs doing well. And this is our senior pet fund. I can see which appeals. So a fund is where money is sitting, where it goes. Appeals are the activities that you do to get money in. So our recurring giving program, Constant Companions, dead on target. That's exactly where I expected it to be. And so I'm comforted to know instantly, every morning, our Constant Companion program is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And if one day it's dropping below or going high, I need to go talk to the person who runs it. I can tell a lot about all the activity that's going on my team. Do you guys do tribute gifts? I noticed this year, if you're not doing them, do them. It's like steady passive income that just keeps rolling in. Yes, it's a gift you make in honor of or in memory of, and the most of them that we get is when somebody's pet dies. A lot of friends will make a tribute gift in memory of the pet. So you get the gift, so you've got the donor who gave the gift, and they ask you to send a card or an email to the person that you're doing something in memory of or in honor of. And so now you have 2 contacts for 2 donors, because that one is a donor and one is a prospective donor. And these gifts on our really quiet summer months when fundraising is really, really hard, that's the backbone of our fundraising, and we don't do anything for them. We just set up the systems for you to make a tribute gift, and every day in the summer, the gifts that roll in steadily are our recurring gifts, our tribute gifts, and employee giving. And they just sustain us through the summer. It's on our website. It's one of the options on our online giving form. You build it right into your online giving form. And I don't have it on these slides, but Little Green Light offers you an online giving form. You don't have to go out and get another provider to do it. And because Little Green Light is giving you the form, the information in that form feeds directly into your system. So there's no labor involved.
Do you use that?
Yes. Yeah. So the other part of it is that it's tracking activity. Every morning I get up early and I look at my dashboard and I know exactly what my team did yesterday. I don't even have to check into the office. So this is my page, but I can pull this drop-down menu and I can look at each of my team members and I can see what they're doing. So this is what the activity that I did in December, and everything on this page is live. So I have 55 major donors that I handle in a portfolio. I can push this button and see the list of my 55 donors. I can see what interaction I've had with them recently or not. I can see what gifts they've made. I can see any goals that I set for them and how far I am toward them. I can look at any tasks I set. There's a little task manager in here. I can look at every one of these things. These are all live links. I can see who did I email on the Friday, the 21st of December. Who was that? What did I say to them? So this is incredibly powerful. You know so much more about your donors with a system like this. What?
Can I get just real quick?
Yes.
Your online giving tools, never replace a third-party interface like PayPal.
No. PayPal is a payment processor. So you have the online form, and connected to that form is a payment processor. Little Green Light uses one called Stripe or PayPal. You choose which one you want to use. So you do pay the payment processor still. You subscribe to this, and you've paid for Little Green Light for the year. But every time someone makes a gift, a credit card company gets a fee. It's about 2.2%. It's fairly low.
So that's for credit and debit cards?
Credit, debit cards. We also have a PayPal account on there.
Do you have an ACH on there?
Not through this, but we accept gifts through ACH. Yeah. Anyone have questions about this? Anyone have an experience they want to talk about? Huh?
Now, I think you said in the first session that Little Green Light will send a donation receipt if they donate.
Yeah, so I could not show you a gift page because donor privacy. I couldn't find one that I could block out enough information to make it useful and still make it be useful to you. There's also pages with gifts. So you have really detailed information about a person's gifts, everybody's gifts, the month's gifts, the year's gifts. But when someone makes a gift through our online form, in the next minute, they have an acknowledgement and a tax receipt. It goes to their email. So we don't have to do that labor. And so what we do is, there are thank you letters in the system. It also has, you can directly email out of the system, and then the system records that you emailed somebody, and it records what the email was. Yeah, and then there are letters. So if you're sending thank you letters, we just go in and rewrite the letter every month so that it's constantly fresh. But that letter automatically goes to the donor that donates online. This saves so much labor. And I'm really talking in detail about this because I'm trying to urge you. It is going to make your fundraising take off. So invest in it. It is so powerful. Any other questions? Yes.
The reason we were in the middle of just deciding which program we want to choose, and the reason we haven't chosen that one yet, because I've heard a lot of good things today.
Yeah.
Is the connection to QuickBooks. And so
They are developing an integration with QuickBooks now.
they're doing they have this, but I mean, how do you guys?
So we are in QuickBooks now, but we have simply worked out a labor system where we reconcile QuickBooks with Little Green Light. You can do that. You don't have to integrate, and some people actually choose not to integrate because your finance department needs different information than what you need. You need a lot more detailed information on the development side than you need on the finance side. So some people just make the development side the primary keeper of all revenue information, and you just feed to the finance department in a spreadsheet what they need. So there are ways around that. It's pretty easy, especially when you're small. You don't necessarily need to integrate your systems. Does someone else have a question? Yes?
How do you handle paper checks? Same way? Just enter them in here?
Right, so then aside from the online gifts, we have wire transfers, checks, stock, gifts of stock, all that kind of stuff, because we're big and we have quite a complex gift profile. So somebody does enter the checks. I have a team member, one team member who's in charge of that, and I cross-train people so that, you know, people go on vacation, get sick, I still have somebody to take care of things. But yeah, so we enter those into a spreadsheet and then we batch load it up. The one thing that this has done for me is that I can thank donors within 24 hours. And to pick up the phone or email a donor that fast, I can sometimes do it within the hour, is just, they're just like, what? You are already saying thank you to me? And you know, I'm saying thank you in a moment when I'm thrilled and happy to get that gift and it comes through in my thank you. And it comes through to them and it inspires them to talk back to me, which is gold standard. That's what you want your donors to do because you want to understand who they are. So I hope you're all convinced. If you haven't got a donor management system yet, get one. Yes?
My question is, with the letters you're talking about, you say you change them monthly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I understand you say, well, thank you very much for your gift, but you also include some success stories you can.
Yes, we always work in as much as we can on everything we do. We don't just do the basics. We try to do the next step up. So our thank you letters always have a photo in them. We always try to make sure there's a dog and a cat, because sometimes we don't know whether people are dog or cat people, and our cat team constantly tells me if I'm forgetting the cat pictures, because I'm a dog person. And you always talk about impact. Even if you're doing a thank you, just a thank you or an acknowledgement, and you have the tax receipt language in there, an update is what the donor wants to hear. They want to know what their gift did for you. And so it has to be pretty general in that letter. But when I thank anybody from $250 or over, everybody who donates to us at $250 and over also gets a personal thank you from one of my team members. So I have my team divided up into small donors, mid donors, major donors, and I have a person attached to each one of those. So every donor that donates at $250 and above has a personal point of contact with the development team. So they always have somebody they can talk to if they have a question or an issue. And they write personal emails or make phone calls to everybody the next day. When I started doing this in 2016, our fundraising took off. So even if you can only do it for your donors at $500 and above or $1,000 and above, pick a group of donors and start really working at thanking them and updating them. Yeah. I have heard of Salsa Labs, and I hear good things about them. I've never used it myself, so I can't be as enthusiastic about it. There are other good systems, and they have slightly different criteria that you might choose them for. I just find this one really, really great for animal welfare, because animal welfare, as I said in my presentation yesterday, depends on many, many, many small gifts. And this just sort of, it handles that mass need to thank people and accept gifts. Some organizations depend more on major gifts, and when you do that, you might want a system that handles what's called moves management, that handles that process that you work through with major donors. But we have little enough major donors that we can deal with it through this system with the task management part and the thing that I can do to track my own portfolio of donors. Yes? I have 6, which is massive for a development team. But I'm handling American Pets Alive and Austin Pets Alive, and we are launching this month probably a $30 million capital campaign. So for the last 2 years, we have deliberately been hiring and building our development staff, because there's a lot of work, for instance, developing this system before you can do something like a capital campaign. So I am always thinking strategically. I am always thinking to the next stage. I never just stop at the stage I'm at and just rest easy with, I'm doing enough now. I am always working little bits of things like GuideStar and donor policies and data management systems, so that I am ready when the next step is required of me. So did anybody have any more questions about donor management? Yeah.
You made a convincing case yesterday about the small cash gifts and making sure you're collecting them. How do you make sure that, how does that relate to the donor management and capturing information on people who are giving cash gifts?
Oh, yeah, we enter those too. Cash gifts are hard because they're anonymous.
Right.
So there's not much you can do with that. We just have them entered as anonymous, and then so we know how much we get in cash. But as you get bigger, you want to move away from kinds of fundraising, and we're going to see that in this presentation. You want to move away from methods of raising money that don't give you any donor information, because your growth will just stop if you don't have donor information. So there's no good answer to that, except as soon as you can, start moving away from it. We still have donation boxes all over the place. We still make about $100,000 on donations, just quarters in boxes. Yes. Sorry. Facebook delivers a sum of money to us. I'm going to talk about Facebook in a little bit, but they deliver a sum of money to us every 6 weeks or so, and we put it in as anonymous. GoFundMe and crowdfunding platforms do give you donor data. So you're going to see this in one of my slides. That's why you don't want to depend on cash and Facebook. Oh, so relationship building. This is why you don't want to depend on cash and Facebook. So the essence of fund building, of fundraising, is not something that everybody understands. We have all heard that fundraising is about relationship building, right? Who in here has not heard that? That would be ridiculous that you haven't heard that. But I don't think we incorporated it enough into everything we do, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So this is a definition, and it's a ridiculous definition that I found on the internet, but it is something that traditional development people tend to bring to their mission. And it's very dry. And it's kind of, I find this definition a little demoralizing. This means we are the people who have our money hand out all the time and are asking for money. That's not fundraising. Fundraising is creating relationships that engage supporters in your cause. You all know this, right? I learned this in a more kind of in-depth way when a philanthropic advisor to one of my donors recommended this book. It's about 100 pages. You can read it in about an hour. You don't have to believe every word of it. It's a little bit rah-rah. But the back blurb on this book says, I'm going to tell you a story to tell you how important relationship building is. Says, stop asking people for money. Have them ask you how much you need and when. And I thought when I read this blurb, oh, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. Well, because I read this book, I did something I had never done before. I had an engagement gathering with our major donors where I wasn't asking them for anything. It wasn't a fundraiser. They were coming and having a drink on us, and we put our board and our executive director in front of them and said, ask them anything you want, brainstorm. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what we're doing right. Meet each other. It was amazing. My text and email was buzzing for 2 days afterward. The donors were so excited about it. And at the end of that meeting, I had invited one person who had been kind of talking to me about, well, I want to make a large gift. And I was thinking, oh, he wants to make a $5,000 gift. I'll keep talking to him. I'm going to invite him to this engagement gathering, which was otherwise only for existing donors. And he sat back in the room and he got so excited about this engagement gathering, which is it's a form of relationship building, that at the end of the evening, he said, how much do you need and when do you need it? And on the next Monday, he put a check on my desk that was the largest single individual gift anyone had ever given our organization, purely on the basis of that meeting. So if you pay attention to what your donors want from you, and what they want from you is a sense of connection, if you really invest your time in that, it feels really loose. It feels really kind of vague and fluffy, but it is the most powerful thing you can do in fundraising. So the way that you can work this into animal welfare with your people who are not major donors, you can't spend a lot of time with your $50 donors. The way that you can with your major donors. But there are all kinds of ways that you can incorporate the concept of relationship building into your materials. So a few years ago, in 2015, we did this big campaign around raising money for our dog program. And I had one of my team members plan out this campaign where she just talked to people as if she were a dog. And she told the story, and she revealed all the problems that we have with dogs who have behavioral problems, and what our behavior team does with them. So we were just talking to them like they were friends, and like they should understand our problems and they should want to help with our problems. So we integrated this with a social media campaign, and we told people in our e-solicit letter, we sent out this big letter, and told them all about the dog behavior program. We didn't ask them for anything because you don't always have your hand out to your friends, right? But we also trusted them to understand that some of our dogs are really, really difficult because your friends should understand you. We treated our donors like friends. But we also, we kept the story going for weeks. We had a couple e-solicits, or not e-solicits, but emails. We had stories going on about the dog. We drew people into the story. We built them a sense of connection with our dog behavior program. This was a really great story of a dog that was so tough that the city shelter was going to euthanize it, gave it to us to give it a last chance. We were at our wits' end with this dog. We thought it was a dangerous dog. She was going to be euthanized. And then Mike Caviani, who you might have heard here, came in and started working with us, and he started working with her, and she ended up being this huge success story. She's completely safe. She was just stressed by the shelter. We believed in her, and we told people, we believe in this dog. You should believe in this dog. You should believe in us, right? So we're making friends with them. And we just kept the story going. This was one of the most successful email and social media campaigns we ever did. Because we really trusted our people and we tried to get them connected to us, okay? You can't stop there. You can't just build a relationship. You have to, at some point, ask for something. And so, but what you're asking at that point, because you've built up this little friendship with your group, is you're not asking them for money. You're asking them to be part of the solution to the problem. You're asking them to become a part of your story. People respond to that. And you tell them how. So you might not just ask for money, you might remind them that they can come volunteer and do dog walks, or be a foster, or just tell your friends. If you can't give to me, tell a friend who might be able to give to me. So you're trusting people. You're bringing them into your story. And people appreciate that. People are hungry for that who are donors, or who are prospective donors. So always remember that in everything you do. Every thank you letter, every e-solicit, every social media campaign. Talk about what they can do for you, how they can be a part of your story. Don't just always have your hand out. If you do have your hand out, do it in a way that's charming, like Cookie there. So in the bottom of the letter, the last letter we sent out, that's where we finally came through and said, Petco Foundation has made a $10,000 gift. Does everybody do matches? Yep. Matches are magic. There are so many donors out there who get so excited about matches. I have donors call me up and say, when are you going to do your next match? I'm going to give to you when you're doing a match. I'm not going to give to you now. But if you're doing a match in a couple months, that's when I'm going to give. Sorry?
Explain what you mean by doing the match, because the only matches I know about are corporate matches.
No, you can call up a major donor and say, hey, I know you want to help us. We've been talking a long time how best you can help us. And I don't know if you know this, but when you put up a matching challenge for other donors, they come out and donate. And so your donor now becomes your hero, because they have given you the opportunity to draw in a lot more money. And the people giving money in that campaign are feeling like they gave you $1, but actually they helped you get $2. So there's this whole psychology around matches that works really, really well. So you can get a match from anywhere. And then you tell your donors, and you set a timeline around it. You want to make it a little bit urgent. You don't have forever to think about this. If you want to help, if you want to double your impact, you got to do it this week. So, and you advertise it. They're best at the end of the year. You can really make your holiday gift donations really go way, way up with a match. So we always look for one at the end of the year. So we told our donors, we've got a match. Help us meet this challenge. Don't just give us money. Help us meet a challenge. Do it by November 20th. Anyone have questions? Anyone have something to share about what they've done in this regard that works really well? A great social media campaign.
You just chat on for people that have offered to do that before, or you actually solicit someone
The matches.
to be the match?
I usually have to solicit someone to do the match. Every once in a while I have someone who knows about matches and will say, do you think we should do a match? I could do that. But usually you have to ask for that. And you ask for it from someone you know, which is why you build relationships. Because when you have a relationship with someone, you can ask them for stuff. Yes?
When you were saying don't ask for money to do things, or we just did a month in mimosa event where we had people come out and we just mingle with our dogs, because we pull off of the euthanization list from our municipal shelters.
Yeah.
So all of our dogs are, some of them have issues, some of them are not pretty, and
Yeah.
but that is a really great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it, because we want to always ask for money because we need it. We're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
But just thanking them,
Mhm.
we never asked for a cent. We made more money at that event
Exactly.
than asking for it.
Yeah. I made more money off that engagement event I told you about, where the guy delivered a check to me the next Monday. I made more money off of that meeting than at our gala. And I did maybe 1,000th of the work for it. So if you approach development the right way, it really works a lot better. Get really smart about how you do everything. You don't have to always pour effort. You just have to do the right thing. So what happens when you reframe fundraising into relationship building? It's got a lot of other benefits that are kind of indirect, but really powerful. So you'll treat your supporters the way they want to be treated, as meaningful partners in your cause. So you're satisfying the people who support you. You yourself will feel more energized and rewarded. I was really inexperienced. I was not a professional fundraiser when I started at APA. I worked there because I believe so deeply in the cause, and it was what I could do. I'm not the person who can do animal care. But I could do development because I had a lot of transferable skills. I'm a really good writer. I spent many years in graduate school and used to teach here at this university. And so I knew how to think critically and strategically. So it was an easy transition for me. But I kind of came into it thinking that fundraising was all about asking for money. And I used to just sit there in front of the phone thinking, I gotta call this person and ask them for money. I hate this. I don't feel energized. But if I sit there in front of the phone, I'm really eager to pick it up and talk to someone about how much I love the cause and how important it is and how somebody else can play a role in it. That's easy. It's energizing. So you become more effective. You'll also hire the right people. I have found that if I hire people who do not love animals, or at least love the cause, or at least love their pets, that they don't stick around. Because we all know fundraising is hard work. And we're in a position in development where we're not on the ground with the animals. We don't have that reward of working directly with the animals. We're in the office and we're dealing with the donors, and it gets really hard. There's a lot of pressure on us. You know, I always have it in my head that if I'm not raising money, animals are dying. And so I feel that sense of pressure. But, and I know that if you hire people who aren't passionate about the cause and don't want to connect with other animal lovers, that they're not going to do well. So you hire the right people when you treat development this way, and you get more funding. It works. Okay, we're going to segue away from relationship building to being strategic. So I told you you need a bookkeeper. The reason why you need a bookkeeper and someone with some financial know-how to come in about once a month is because you need to know in pretty good detail how much money you spend and how much it's going to increase from year to year. So you have someone come in at the end of the previous year, figure out how much you spent that year and how much you're going to need to spend the next year so that you have a fundraising goal. You always need a goal for fundraising. Part of what you can do, even if you're really, really small and you're not yet really, really sophisticated about your fundraising, is to do some very simple strategic steps. So yesterday I showed people a really sophisticated, huge spreadsheet that is my strategy. And I had someone say to me, boy, that was really overwhelming. That was really daunting. I don't know how I'm ever going to get there. Well, you have years to get there if you're still pretty small. But you can start right now building strategy into everything you do. So we had a fundraising goal, and I created this spreadsheet at a very simple level. I had someone come and tell me right after my talk yesterday, after I said that we were completely unsuccessful at Facebook campaigns, and she said, actually, my group raised $62,000 off of Facebook. Not Facebook birthday campaigns off the donate button, which is astonishing to me. I said, well, how did you do that? Teach me, because I don't know how to do that. But she said, we're really successful about it. So I'm taking her example and showing you how she could increase her income if she needed to do it, and to just build in some really simple strategy. All this really is simple project management. So you take what you raised the previous year, what you actually raised, from each of these funding streams. And one of the things you always want to aim for to be a really powerful fundraiser development person is diversify your income. Never, never, never depend on one type of income. If you see yourself overly dependent on one stream of income, part of your strategy should be to introduce something new. So this is a hypothetical example. They raised $62,000 in Facebook campaigns, and these amounts here, they didn't have grants. And the way that you're calculating this is you give yourself a baseline, and you know you have to increase by 14% more. So this is a straight 14% more from each of these things. But it's never quite that easy. So you start thinking about, do I want to raise $70,000 from Facebook? I would say no. Be less dependent on Facebook. You haven't diversified enough. Most important thing, what? Can you anticipate it? You don't have any donor data from Facebook. They don't send you the donor names. If they send you the donor names, they often don't send you any contact information. You cannot build a relationship with those people. Your fundraising will just stall if all you do is depend on Facebook. So move some of the effort from Facebook away to crowdfunding in this example. Crowdfunding is very similar, it's the same skill set, but just start using something like GoFundMe or Mighty Cause, because those systems deliver the names and email addresses of your donors, and now you have a basis for building a relationship with those people and getting more gifts. So yesterday I told you the gold standard in fundraising, donor retention. It's far easier to get another gift out of a donor you already have than to find new donors. If you're working completely off Facebook, you're constantly just working with new donors. You are going to stall. So switch the skill set that that person is using, that's a lot of social media posts, to crowdfunding. It's the same skill set. You're setting up fundraising pages online. And then set yourself a goal, and at that point, you're just working toward that goal. If you have a goal, you'll work toward it. So you're going to gain donor data. You've shifted the work from Facebook. And in this hypothetical example, you had this much money from hosted events last year, but there was this guy, John, who did an event, and he did an amazing job, and he raised $3,000, but you know John has moved to Italy. So you're not going to do a straight 14% because you lost John, but you're going to try to raise some money from hosted events. So you're thinking this way. You're thinking about what is the reality that I face in my situation. It's going to be different for all of you. Next, you found a volunteer grant writer. This is what I did for APA. In 2008, I came on and I overheard Ellen Jefferson say while I was walking a dog, I really need a grant writer. And I thought, I write grants for research in graduate school. I know how to write a grant. I was really underestimating what I was getting into. But within the next 2 years, I had brought in over $100,000 as a volunteer writing grants. You can find these people. You don't need someone who knows how to write grants. You need someone who knows how to write persuasively. That's all you need. There are a lot of writers out there who are underemployed and want to do some writing that will make an impact. So you can recruit for them. So this grant writer came in and said, I'm going to raise $20,000. And I would say, you're not. But we're going to, because you don't want to rest all your fundraising success on something that is untested. But maybe that person can raise $9,000. So you're guessing, you're projecting, but you're doing it in an educated, strategic way. Unsolicited funds just rolled in the door, came over the website donation page, or somehow people sent checks. You could always depend on some unsolicited income, but you might want to work at it. If you're going to get 14% more, do something like get some PR out in the community. So as people hear about you, they'll just send you checks because they've heard something great about you. That works. We had donation jars. We're going to do 10 more adoption events. That means, yeah, reasonably, our donation jars can go up. So this is just a hypothetical example that I just made up last night. Does everybody get it? Does everybody feel like they could do this? If you do this, and the previous year all you did was sort of keep up and not think ahead, you are already on your way to that really sophisticated spreadsheet that I showed you yesterday. And in a few years, you'll be there if you keep working away at it.
Do you use direct mail?
We use direct mail. Austin Pets Alive has this reputation for what we call resourcefulness. We don't do anything that isn't free if we don't have to. We do direct mail. Direct mail is when you actually send a letter, a physical paper letter to people. The advantage of direct mail is if you have an older population in your city or town, they are more likely to give to that. A lot of people don't trust email and online giving, but they do trust that. And the beauty of it is that you tend to get bigger gifts through direct mail. So we do it at the end of the year. But we do maybe 4 direct mails a year. We spend very little on it. Because we live in Austin, we're a very tech-savvy population, and we actually find that our donors prefer email. So test it. See if your population prefers paper mail. They might. You might get more gifts, but part of development is constantly experimenting with things and finding new sources of money. So after you've broken down the challenge by money, you don't want to rest easy there. You want to also track activity. I told Dr. Jefferson showed those little videos yesterday about what happened with her when she just trusted her development director. That was not me, I hasten to add. That was 3 development directors back. And she just trusted her, just kept telling, it's okay, you're gonna make the money. And then at the end of the year, she had that uh-oh moment, we didn't make the money, now I have to lay people off or something. You don't ever wanna do that, and you avoid that by being very strategic and also setting everybody, whether they're a volunteer or a staff member, a KPI. Everyone know what a KPI is? Key performance indicator. That's a term from the business world. You tell them what are the most important things you have to do to perform well. So you're tracking their activity. I did this by quarter instead of, you should do it by month because I needed to fit it on the slide. So this new grant writer has come in. We're expecting her to raise $9,000. So we start to think, okay, reasonably, she can't raise any grant money in the first quarter of the year because it takes a while for a grant to get submitted and reviewed. But if she has found 10 sources of, so we're going to assign to her in the first quarter, do some research, find 10 sources of grants that we are eligible for. That takes a little time. And we found 10 sources because you should really apply for 2 or 3 grants for every one that you expect to get, if you're trying to be really safe in your projections. If you're really new, I would say write 3 or 4 proposals for every one you expect to get. When I project grant income, I'll maybe apply for a $50,000 grant, and I will project that I will get a quarter of that money. So I might get that grant, but I might not get the next 3 grants. So you're always hedging your bets, always trying to think smart about what kind of money you're actually going to be bringing in, because you're constantly working on a projection, not reality. It isn't reality yet. So you want to kind of protect yourself by building in a little cushion in your projections. So we're expecting this grant maker to make this amount of money, and so we're going to follow that. But we're also going to follow that she's actually doing what she's supposed to do. This is really important. In 2016, our fundraising was lagging a little bit, and the board, as the year went on, got more and more worried, and Ellen Jefferson got more and more worried, and when Ellen Jefferson is worried, she starts micromanaging, which is really unpleasant. But all they were tracking was money. Meanwhile, I was working like a demon with this relationship building engagement. I was doing everything I could to thank every donor within 24 hours, and I kind of knew at the end of the year, this is going to pan out, but I couldn't convince anybody that it was going to pan out. The board was getting more and more upset, and Dr. Jefferson was getting more and more upset because the executive director is responsible for your money coming in, and the board can fire her if the money doesn't come in. So she was understandably upset. But we didn't have a system there where I had written KPIs for myself and for my team. And so she didn't know that I was actually doing all this activity and that I could document that I was doing all that activity. It worked out. We raised more money than we were expected to that year. I was like, I'm not surprised. But our board was surprised and our executive director was surprised. And as your fundraiser in your organization, you do not ever want to be in the position where they are worried, and then surprised. Because what they all remember was 2016 was a bad year, when actually we raised a ton of money more than what we were intended to. So this is really key, and you can just do this for every position you have. So if you have someone handling Facebook campaigns, write KPIs. How often do they need to post? When do they need to post? If they're doing hosted events, how many hosted events are they doing? When are they doing them? And then you can watch every month. Did you do that? So then you also track your progress. You do it every month. So I made this up to go along with the KPIs and the projection I just put forward. And so all those crowdfunding and Facebook and donation jars, that's all individual. That's all individual giving. It all rolls up into this figure. the grants, and then those hosted events. So what you see in here is a lot of red. But it's July. It's not October. You don't have to worry yet. You have to do something, but you don't have to worry yet. This is how you make it more predictable that you are going to meet your fundraising goals. You are going to cover the expenses that are going to save the animals that need to be saved. So in this case, the grant writer flaked out and didn't write some proposals. But I know that because I saw the money's dropping, and I went and asked, what's going on? If that's the case, I know that I just asked her to start writing more proposals. However, because money from grants comes very slowly, that's not going to be my solution in this case. My solution is going to be maybe these events are working really well. John didn't move to Italy. And he put on a fundraising event and he raised $4,000, not $3,000 this year. So maybe I look to John to do another event. And I can do that because it's July, and I can say, hey John, could you do one of those events again in September? This is the way you make your funding more predictable. The worry is up here in the individual because that's the majority of your income. So even if that's a small drop and that's a smaller drop, that's actually a huge drop in your money. So you pay very close attention to those things. However, you can see here, year to date, we're only 1% behind. So we're not in a crisis, but we have some alerts to start working harder on some things and react. So this is what you do. You do it in the summer or at the end of the summer. If your fundraising is lagging, you do not wait until November, December to do something. You do it sooner than later. The more time you have, the more options you have. So you look at what's working well, and you elaborate on that. You ask John to do another fundraiser. Or maybe your crowdfunding is working well, and you ask John or somebody else to do a match on your crowdfunding. You elaborate on what you already do. You don't have to start working 20 hours a day. Just get really smart about what's working and add to it. Stop doing what doesn't work. So somebody asked me yesterday, when do you know when to stop doing something that doesn't work? Well, you evaluate it. You look at the grant writer. Was the grant writer writing the grants? Or was she writing really bad grant proposals, or what? What was going on? And you look into that, drill into it, and make a decision about whether it makes sense to keep doing that. Maybe it just turned out that person is so flaky that you cannot depend on them. Stop depending on the grant income from coming in. Work on something else. Alert your board, recruit volunteers. One year, our fundraising was lagging a little bit, and so we alerted our board, and our board got on the phone and started calling their friends who they knew loved animals, and we got some big gifts in just on the strength of some phone calls because we asked our board to help. So you should have a good board. If you don't have a good board, work on that. Start working on activities with short-term results. If you're really small, it's really easy to get into a cash flow problem. So it's not just that you're not raising the goal, but you don't have enough in that month. So look at your books. Keep that bookkeeper working. Keep that knowledgeable finance person working so that you are staying on top of things month to month. I deliver a fundraising report to my board every month in great detail. I tell them how much we've raised, if we're above or below where we should be. I tell them why. So they expect me to know why. So I am constantly watching our activity and our revenue. So you can set up triage plans. This year I had a little bit of a disaster. Our major gifts officer left at the beginning of the year. I didn't have one in place. Major gifts officers are hard to find, good ones. I didn't have one in place until August. That's too late for major gifts. It takes a year to cultivate a really big gift. So what I did instead was look for slightly smaller gifts from the people, and I had my new major gifts officer and me calling, writing, holding meetings. I just reduced my goal, but enough that we made it. We made our budget for the year. So don't look for perfect, look for whatever you can do. It's really bad to go into the red as a nonprofit. It starts to make donors mistrust that you are a good nonprofit. So you do whatever you can do to reach your goal. That's why you set that goal. Other things you can do is get yourself into the media. That can really drive donations, because never underestimate how many people don't even know about you.